shall we? An unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. Well, I suppose I ought to start with a confession. I was supposed to, apparently, work on one chapter in the book, but I didn't do that. As I was reading the book, I started to, some things started to fall together for me around the idea of big mind. And there are allusions to it through the whole book. So basically, this talk is about, it is from Suzuki Roshi's book, but it is sort of a compilation of, and sort of my thoughts about big mind. I titled the talk, Thoughts About Big Mind, an Oxymoron, or Maybe Not. The big mind is really the way Buddhism looks at how things work. Other religions do that by looking at a deity of one sort or another, or multiple deities. We all struggle to understand what's going on around us. And this is kind of Buddhism's answer. Big mind is really Buddha nature. Another name for it is original mind. The mind which we will acquire by our pure practice is something which is not graspable, which is beyond our words, but at the same time, the mind will respond to everything. That's the oxymoron part. How can you have thoughts about something about which you can't think? The way I came to that point was because immediately I started thinking about what's the biggest thing I know that's ungraspable? And Dean can probably answer that question, knowing that I'm a sort of a wannabe cosmologist. The first thing that came to mind was the Big Bang. Well, what does the Big Bang have to do with big mind? Hopefully, I'll pull those two things together a bit. One of the things that really just kind of blew me away about the Big Bang is the Big Bang was an infinitesimal spark, and it contained all of the energy that will ever be used in the universe. All of it, ever. When that first happened, there was no matter. There was no matter because everything was so hot and so pressured together. There was something called singularity, which I don't know that we really understand what that is, but it simply means that everything is so crunched together that there's not even subatomic particles. And it exploded outward. And as I was thinking about this, one of the things that I realized that I never realized before was that matter is a way of storing energy. That's why the universe still burns. Because the matter that was created as it exploded outward now collapses back in on itself, makes stars, does all sorts of things, and now we got the whole universe around us. and everything is contained there in terms of the universe. There's no energy, there's no matter being added from outside, there's only that. It's just one thing. Of course, if you think about that, and you think about big mind, that's just a huge skin bag, if you will, like we talk about the skin bag. It's a closed system. And big mind not only contains all of that, big mind contains the void that it blew out into, whatever was there before, whatever will be there afterwards, and whatever else is out there. It's pretty incomprehensible. That led me to think about ordinary mind, our mind. And as I thought about that, I realized the reason that we typically think in dualities is because our mind works by comparing. If we compare everything, that's how we recognize things, that's how we name things. They're bigger, smaller, darker, lighter, take your pick, red, green. All of those, that's the way that our mind conceives of things. The basic element of that duality is on or present and absent. What dawned on me again as I was going down this way was we conceive of one. We can't conceive of a multiple of, in terms of a final product. There can't be two gods. There may be two universes, we don't know that. But ultimately, there's only one whole thing. That's the way we think. We think on or off. That's how a computer thinks. A computer thinks on, off. We think that way. The question that stuck in my mind, I'm not going to go on with this, but I'll share it with you, is can we even conceive of things as they really are, or are we doomed to conceive of it this way because this is the only way our brain works? I'll stop with that because that didn't get me anywhere. Everything gets compared. Think about Mount Everest. It's big. It's really big. Unless you think about Mount Everest compared to the Earth, and then it's maybe a pimple. Or Mount Everest compared to the solar system or the universe. Everything we do makes those dualities. What I'm going to do from here is go through a series of quotes from the book that kind of proceeded down some of my lines of thinking and some of the understanding that I came to about original mind. I apologize. Big mind, original mind are the same thing. Small mind, ordinary mind are the same thing. And I switch back and forth from them without thinking sometimes. So, the first tenet, or one of the first tenets of Buddhism, is that everything changes. And Suzuki says that everything changes is the basic truth of each existence. Wherever we go, this teaching is true. This teaching is also understood as the teaching of selflessness, of emptiness. Because each existence is in constant change, there is no abiding self. In fact, the self-nature of each existence is nothing but change itself. There is no special, separate self-nature for each existence. I had to read that a couple times, so I'm going to read that last sentence back again. Because each existence is in constant change, there is no abiding self. In fact, the self-nature of each existence is nothing but change itself, the self-nature of all existence. There is no special separate self-nature for each existence. Because we cannot accept the truth of change, we suffer. So the cause of suffering is our non-acceptance of this truth. The teaching of the cause of suffering and the teaching that everything changes are thus two sides of the same coin. The eternal exists because of the non-eternal existence. We do not seek for something besides ourselves. We should find the truth in this world through our difficulty, through our suffering. This is some of what Julie talked about in her talk. One of the other things that struck me was that he talks about mind waves, and this was probably one of the things that helped me understand some stuff that I was caught on. What he says is this. Usually we think of our mind as receiving impressions and experiences from the outside, but that is not a true understanding of our mind. The true understanding is that mind includes everything. You yourself make the waves in your mind. If you leave your mind as it is, it will become calm. This mind is called big mind. If your mind is not related to anything else, then there is no dualistic understanding in the activity of your mind. You understand activity as just waves of your mind. Big mind experiences everything within itself. The difference between the two minds, the mind which includes everything and the mind which is related to something, actually they're the same thing. But the understanding is different, and your attitude towards your life will be different according to which understanding you have. That everything is included within your mind is the essence of mind. Even though waves arise, the essence of your mind is pure. It is just like clear water with a few waves. Actually, water always has waves. Waves are the practice of water. Water and waves are one. One of the things that I understood from reading that was that as much as I try, I still tend to conceive of the thoughts that come up as I'm sitting in Zazen as separate. But they're every bit as, and I think I realized in a different way that everything is within big mind, including all of our thoughts, including everything that comes up while you're sitting Zazen. You can interrupt me anytime you want. I'm just going to keep going. Go ahead.
When you're talking about big mind, is it a sense that it's not your individual big mind? It's that big mind is just like all of us sitting here thinking. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
Big mind is even bigger than that. Big mind
but it's not an individual big mind.
No.
We don't have a bunch of individual big minds. There's just one big mind.
Because there's no individual. That's what he was saying initially. Is he was talking about the idea that, we aren't individuals. we can think about it that way, but the individual actually comes from emptiness together with change. Change is what makes the individual manifestations of reality. I didn't want to just mean individuals in terms of people, but that was the one thing that he was saying, is that because everything changes moment to moment and everything is empty, there is no individual. So what we connect to is that universal. The one thing that other people call sometimes big mind is the source. Okay? Anything else? Before we understand the idea of emptiness, everything seems to exist substantially. But after we realize the emptiness of things, everything becomes real, but not substantial. When we realize that everything we see is part of emptiness, we can have no attachments to any existence. We realize that everything is just a tentative form and color. We realize the true meaning of each tentative existence. And that sort of speaks to what we were just talking about. The big mind, in which we must have confidence, is not something which you can experience objectively. It is something which is always with you, always on your side. Your eyes are on your side, for you cannot see your eyes, and your eyes cannot see themselves. Eyes only see things outside, objective things. If you reflect on yourself, that self is not the true self anymore. You cannot project yourself as some objective thing to think about. The mind, which is always on your side, is not just your mind, it is universal mind. Always the same, not different from another's mind. It is Zen mind. It is big mind. This mind is whatever you see. Your mind is always with whatever you see. Although you do not know your own mind, it is there. At the very moment you see something, it is there. This is very interesting. Your mind is always with the things you observe, so you see. This mind is at the same time everything. True mind is watching mind. You cannot say, this is my self, my small mind, or my limited mind, and that is big mind. That is limiting yourself, restricting your true mind, objectifying your true mind. Again, going back to this idea that whatever thoughts we have are a part of big mind.
It, when you were reading that and before, it's like getting into that dependent co-arising.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
definitely getting into that dependent co-arising.
Yep. That is exactly what he's talking about, is dependent co-arising. In the Parinirvana Sutra, Buddha says, everything has Buddha nature. And this is the one issue I took with the last quote I read, but Dogen reads it in this way, everything is Buddha nature. So your big mind isn't beside you, it is you. everything has Buddha nature means that Buddha nature is in each existence, so Buddha nature and each existence are different. But when you say everything is Buddha nature, it means everything is Buddha nature itself. When there is no Buddha nature, there is nothing at all. Something apart from Buddha nature is just a delusion. It may exist in your mind, but such things actually do not exist. I'm going to say this comes from the chapter on bowing because he alludes to that in the one part of the quote. When everything exists within big mind, all dualistic relationships drop away. There is no distinction between heaven and earth, man and woman, teacher and disciple. In your big mind, everything has the same value. Everything is Buddha himself. In your practice, you should accept everything as it is, giving to each thing the same respect given to Buddha. That's a tough one, but
Yeah. It's a tall order.
that's a big order. Yeah. If you do not have this firm conviction of big mind in your practice, your bow will be dualistic. When you are just yourself, you bow to yourself in its true sense, and you are one with everything. Only when you are you yourself can you bow to everything in a true sense. We have to believe in something which has no form and no color, something which exists before all forms and colors appear. But if you are always prepared for accepting everything we see as something appearing from nothing, knowing that there is some reason why a phenomenal existence of such and such form and color appears, then at that moment you will have perfect composure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is absolutely necessary for everyone to believe in nothing. But I do not mean voidness. There is something, but that something is something which is always prepared for taking some particular form, and it has some rules or theory or truth in its activity. This is called Buddha nature or Buddha himself. If you limit your activity to what you can do just now in this moment, then you express fully your true nature, which is the universal Buddha nature. This is our way. When we practice Zazen, we limit our activity to the smallest extent. Just keeping the right posture and being concentrated on sitting is how we express our universal nature. Then we become Buddha. Then we express Buddha nature. So instead of having some object to worship, we just concentrate on the activity which we do in each moment. When you bow, you should just bow. When you sit, you should just sit. When you eat, you should just eat. If you do this, the universal nature is there. And when I read that one, it started to connect for me in ways that I hadn't quite connected before. How Zazen and Buddha nature or big mind, however, are connected. Why is it that practice is enlightenment? Because that's what we're connecting to when we sit zazen. Zazen practice is the practice in which we resume our pure way of life beyond any gaining idea and beyond fame and profit. By practice, we just keep our original nature as it is. There's no need to intellectualize about what our pure original nature is because it is beyond our intellectual understanding. And there is no need to appreciate it because it is beyond our appreciation. So just to sit without any idea of gain and with the purest intention to remain as quiet as our original nature, this is our practice.
I have a question.
Sure, please.
I'm not sure if this is going to make sense.
It's all right, I'm not sure the talk makes sense, but that's...
What you just read seems to imply that consciousness is a necessary condition for this big mind realization through Zazen.
For realization.
Yes,
Yeah.
So consciousness, like
Yes.
in the central nervous system kind of way, not in a big mind kind of way. Because behind you, there's somebody who's been sitting there ever since we started coming here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not it or she or he, I can't tell, is not conscious.
Correct.
And so that is probably not Zazen.
I would say he's not capable of it at this point.
Okay.
But he is part of Buddha nature.
He is part of Buddha. Yeah, he's part of big mind. He's part of Buddha nature, but he's not going to get enlightened.
Well, or he is.
Or he is.
He's part of Buddha nature.
Well,
Maybe lost it.
he's part of enlightenment. Whether he's going to be I'll stop. I'm going to get confused. But
Who's on first? Who's enlightened?
Zazen practice is the practice in which we resume our pure way of life, beyond any gaining idea and beyond fame and profit. Some of what you were talking about. By practice, we keep our original nature as it is. There's no need to intellectualize. I just read this. I apologize. Yeah, that's... Each one of us must make his own true way, and when we do, all that way will express the universal way. This is the mystery. When you understand one thing through and through, you understand everything. When you try to understand everything, you will not understand anything. The best way is to understand yourself, and then you will understand everything. So when you try hard to make your own way, you will help others, and you will be helped by others. Before you make your own way, you cannot help anyone, and no one can help you. To be independent in the true sense, we have to forget everything which we have in our mind and discover something quite new and different moment after moment. This is how we live in this world. It reminds me of one, and I forgot which talk it was, where we were talking about giving, and giving starts not with the action. It starts with the intention.
It made me think too of I think we talked a little bit about it, the bodhisattva and bodhicitta.
Mhm.
And in that practice, and gaining that practice, is to be aware of how people have helped us.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you know, we can get caught up in just wanting to gain something, but we also within, you know, we have to practice and remember the people that have helped us on this path. Yeah.
Well, and one of, as this is just peripheral to what you just said, but one of the things that we know about happiness and wellness is one of the most important things is gratitude.
Yeah.
Feeling gratitude for what we have. Nothing helps you be healthy and live longer than that, apparently, from some of the research that's been done. Please.
So, John, would you say that enlightenment or big mind transcends consciousness, in that consciousness is a vehicle or a path to big mind, or is included in big mind?
Why don't you ask me a hard question? I get confused with this one because people, the way I've seen the word consciousness used, sometimes it refers to big mind, and other times it refers to human consciousness.
And awareness. I've heard it put with awareness. Yeah.
But the human aspect, because in a sense, I mean, the earth is conscious of the sun, that's attractive force. So you could express that as a level of consciousness, this awareness. That things respond to each other. It's their ability to respond.
Okay.
Kind of could be taken. Though when we hear the term consciousness, we immediately think kind of human, at least, is the benchmark, and then we might grudgingly allow, well, maybe there's some other life forms that have consciousness. Maybe an octopus has consciousness, and so on. But if we really enter into big mind, we can all of a sudden see consciousness in a broader vein.
In a broader sense.
That it really just comes down to the responsiveness. That there is clearly, in some sense, there is an awareness that exists between the sun and the earth. And there's an awareness within the earth. The plants growing have an awareness of the sun. They even turn to the sun.
Well,
It seemed to signify an awareness too.
Would that mean almost like a physical attraction, or like a magnet being attracted to steel the same way? I guess so. It's still still be called awareness.
Yeah, because ultimately consciousness is responsiveness. That's how we would test. Is this person conscious? Can I get a response? And if they're comatose and their instruments aren't registering a response to anything, it's they're not conscious.
I don't really think of awareness or consciousness as a response. I just think of it as the present, being present.
Well,
With
that's
whatever
a
it is.
response to
And
what's
from
right
there, it can take on that.
there.
That you can be present and, or conscious of what is going on, and not, just be present with it and not go anywhere with it. Which we talk about in our practice of being present. Not reacting, not acting or reacting, just.
Yeah, I guess all I'm suggesting is that the whole notion of responding and reacting, to take that into a much broader realm.
Yeah.
We think of reacting based on our conditioning. And we have our own set of causes and conditions that
Yeah.
react. But other beings have their own ways of reacting. So to become open through big mind to that, and to see big mind as being this vast web of responsiveness.
Causes
Not
a-
to get too hung up on consciousness in terms of its discriminating traits. We say, well, is it conscious or not? But and there's a realm in which that's significant, and we want to look at that. But in the realm of big mind, of no distinction, now I think this sense of universal responsiveness can be helpful to see things in that light. And now we can kind of get our heads wrapped around the oneness of all things. Oh yeah, the planet turning to the sun, and the communication taking place between trees, and all the things that our scientists are discovering. And even they're scratching their heads saying, well, does this denote consciousness at some level? We've got to rethink what is that about? What is that?
It was the thought that came to me as you were talking about that, is the communication that we found between plants, which we don't typically think of as conscious.
Yeah.
Right.
There goes all that vegetarianism.
Gotta
Out the window,
eat.
Chris.
Gotta eat.
Might as well
That-
take it.
Gotta eat something.
Answer,
Can't live on air.
But if you think about it, everything that's growing, the plant, they are responding to the energy of the earth.
Yeah, but that's
You know.
why the only part that I struggle with sometimes, I still kind of get it, is when Dogen says that even rocks on the chair, not has Buddha nature, but are part of Buddha nature, right? Is that what
Yeah,
we're
they
saying?
are.
It is Buddha nature,
That's
yeah.
right, but I mean, it's just like everything. So big mind encompasses everything. We all came from that minuscule, smaller
Yeah.
than the tip of head of a pin that exploded outwards. So, so that just makes sense. If you put it all back together, everything's in there, including the rock or the chair, and all and everything, even the hardest rock, even a diamond, it will dissolve at some point and go back into be matter that you can use to construct a new rock or to feed a plant that we can then eat and feed us. And so,
Yeah, true.
The whole interdependence, everything being interdependent with no this and that, no separation.
So it could have been even a difference in translation when the Buddha said it to when Dogen said it, as to all things had Buddha nature. I just even think back in the medieval times where they were even more stuck in like it's, man's world, and the man dominates everything. Where I think even more in the 12th century or the 13th century when Dogen was around, and they started saying, "Oh no, maybe we're part of it, all of it ourselves. We're not dominating this planet. We're of it, not on it."
And along these same lines, one of his first writings was his brief, wonderful commentary on the Heart Sutra about Prajnaparamita. And you have to read this because it's only a couple of pages long, and the upshot of it is Prajna is everywhere. So in the rocks, we hear wisdom and we think, it's kind of like a consciousness
Yeah.
trigger for us. Wisdom. Yeah, well, that's our realm. Yeah, we know all about wisdom. But his fascicle says, actually, everything is wisdom. Prajna is everywhere. Everywhere you turn, Prajna. So.
I know for myself that I don't know if I understand big mind, but the one thing that the talk that I really do is this idea that everything is Buddha nature, and applied to the practice in daily life when we're angry or have pain, or we're sitting here having this endless script of thoughts going on that usually aren't very interesting, is to realize that those are sacred things too. And that can be very liberating to, when you're, because when I get angry now or upset or sad or feelings, I really reflect on, I first embrace it, and then really feel it, and then feel gratitude for it. And I'm not sure why. It's not to get rid of it. It's just to honor that experience. And it's a very But you can only really think that way if you're looking at things that your experience as being sacred. If that makes any sense.
Well, I think it goes back to the one quote that I read about, there's two ways to think about this. There's thinking with small dualistic mind, and then there's being connected to big mind. And it is, what you're talking about is seeing those things in the context of Buddha nature, in the context of big mind. And at least to whatever degree, being able to accept them and being able to sit with them.
You know, I have to tell you though, years ago when I was reading some Suzuki Roshi books, I remember him talking about, oh, so you are struggling in your practice. You are really unhappy, having a difficult time. Good. That's good. You know, and he talked about it, being an opportunity to practice. But at the time when I read that, which was, I don't know how many years ago, it was just like, oh my God, I don't want to struggle. I don't want to have all.
Yeah.
I thought this was to get rid of all that.
I have a
Yeah.
question. So,
Yeah.
if, our main chant, the supreme chant, the utmost chant, prajna paramita, and, we strive for, well, nothing, but I mean, if you had to
And
put
I've
your-
gotten it.
if you had to put your finger on something, or your pinky, it would be wisdom and compassion, wouldn't it? So, and if, I'm just thinking like, okay, big mind is everything, and, just go with the flow, accept it all as whatever comes up in Zazen. But then we talk about feeding the seeds of the storehouse.
consciousness.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The
so-
other wholesome seeds, we make
Yeah.
that
And
distinction.
so I guess I'm just sort of like, well,
Yeah, the storehouse
like,
conscience.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I can like accept the whole big mind as like everything, the positive and the negative. But I have a hard time, if I'm in Zazen and I don't know. I know we're not doing this for any particular reason, but still we're chanting the Prajna Paramita every day and the Metta Sutta, So I just think, all right, in Zazen, if I do have some kind of control over what my focus is on. And, so if, thoughts come up like, oh, I hate so-and-so or whatever, I'm like, okay, that's nice, just let that pass like a cloud, and
But-
so, like, I don't know, I know we should just accept whatever comes up or nothing, but
Well,
I don't know, I'm just thinking about feeding the positive, wholesome,
go ahead.
kind and loving, compassionate seeds of whatever, of big mind.
So, going back to, Aaron's comment and also your question, so my understanding is that when we're connected to big mind, that we spontaneously have experiences of awe and gratitude, oneness and wholeness, and loving kindness. These are all things that are the fruits of big mind. So big mind has a nature, and we can perceive that nature as a result of our zazen when our mind drops off. So we're not striving to create these things. We're just creating the conditions to be able to encounter big mind, and once we do, these are the natural outpourings of our connection with big mind.
But aren't like the bad seeds, so to speak, the poisons or whatever,
Yeah.
aren't they part of big mind too?
They are, most definitely.
So now you've got me all confused.
So that's why you have to practice.
That's why you're.
Perfuming the good seeds and then practicing right karma and right intention.
But if for some reason that doesn't result in good seeds flowering, so to speak,
So if you, I think if you equally drop off the good seeds and the bad seeds, original mind
Comes first.
emerges, and original mind is overwhelmingly positive in nature.
But it's nothing special. You're gonna learn that tomorrow.
It's like you said this morning, that it's, you know, it's all a part of our own condition, like arms and legs, and it's just a part of everything. And somewhere in one of the chapters, Suzuki Roshi says that the way is, it's all pervasive, and it's without, it is not contingent upon practice or anything. It's all there. It's just perfect. So I run with that a little bit. And it's like, so everything that's happening, everything that has happened for a purpose. It's all perfect. So why should I empathize with something? It's like you said, if you're free of dust, you wouldn't want to try and dust yourself off. You're free. Empathy with what? Something that's perfect? So I'm as confused as you are.
I'm just thinking, like, what about the dark web? You know,
It's
I
perfect.
haven't gone on the dark web, and I'm not like, I've never even tried to search for it. I don't even know how you get to the dark web, but I don't really know exactly what it is. But I know it's
Never
like,
heard of it.
I probably shouldn't go on it, because, you know, somebody might, you know, be knocking on my door or something.
What is the dark web?
The dark web, like, I don't even know,
Well-
it's like where the
Where you go
terrorists
for
go.
child porn or
Oh.
something.
The dark
Yeah.
web, it's
Or
like where
anything
the
illegal. It's completely
Yeah.
unregulated internet. So
Yeah.
like where terrorists kind of go
Yeah,
on and
yeah.
get their
No
ideas
wonder I
and
don't know about it.
so.
I thought that
The
was,
Badlands.
I thought that was Facebook.
only your page.
But I mean, is that part of Big Mind, where, you know, people can go on and figure out how to create
Oh,
a
you
bomb?
could use any hate crime or hate.
Huh?
You could use any hate crime or organization, like
But
Is
yes,
that,
it's
is that part of
Well,
Big
sure. I mean,
Mind?
yeah,
It's-
Hitler was part of Big Mind.
it's causes and conditions.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that
So,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't know,
Sorry.
when I'm sitting in Zazen, sometimes I feel like I got a dark web going on.
I have.
So
And I'm like, okay,
Blaze Polish.
like, you know, there's a couple
We
different
can-
webs.
we
I
can
go-
talk afterwards.
I mean, it's not that dark, but it's like, you know, shades of
He's a
gray.
psychologist or something.
well, could like
Can't retire yet, John.
human
You're patient.
human physiology be kind of a example, well, maybe the example is the wrong word, but like I was surprised when I took an immunology course that we have like dozens of cancer cells circulating in our
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
And so that's the dark web. But you know, I'm pretty healthy right now, cancer and all, because they're just little cells, and my immune system is popping up, and you know, and the kidneys they take up so much of the bad byproducts of metabolism and dump them. The liver transformed, you know, all that kind of physiology. And those of you that don't have a physiology background, I apologize, but it's a system. It's a discrete system apart from other systems, so it's in that way it's a bad example. But the stuff that's bad about it gets converted, I should say, or there's like some kind of balance that's maintained. And these bad things they have a place and they have a place to go too, and there's a way that they're handled. And would that be a way to look at like bad seeds versus good seeds, and if you water
Well,
the good
it's
seeds?
I mean, from at least the way I look at it is, it's all causes and conditions. If the causes are bad, the conditions are bad. You know, it's when Dee and I were talking the other day, and I said, as the political situation came up, and there is nothing that destroys my equanimity faster than watching the hearings or doing the other stuff. But what dawned on me is, and I hate, hopefully this won't depress everybody, but I thought the thought that came to mind was, maybe this is the karma of our nation.
Yeah.
Well, it is the karma of our nation where we are now. We just don't know where it's going. I mean, I want it to be the way I want it to be.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I found out it doesn't work that way. But, you know, it's my understanding of big mind is simply that. You get what you get from causes and conditions. I would like those all to be good causes and conditions too, but it's whatever's out there. It is, in a different way, what we say as Buddhists is, big mind is simply reality, real reality. I mean, not what we want it to be, not what we think it should be, it is the interactions of all of the universe together, all of beyond the universe together.
The Buddhaverse.
The Buddhaverse. Very good. I like that.
You know,
Ah.
I heard somebody described it in a class that I studied, dependent co-arising with for about a year and a half, and they were talking about like the big mind of just being whatever it is before we start adding anything to it. You know, before we go into that mental, you know, storehouse that we have and start adding things on it, putting layers on it. And that was how they were describing the big mind, was, you know, big mind is before we do any of that. It's just this, that's it, you know, and it's before we start doing all this.
Well,
I think it comes back to intention too. Real quick though, but I thought like Bark and I had a conversation the other day where I was watching The Punisher and he couldn't even be in the room, and my intention's fine. Like I'm okay watching The Punisher. I don't like all that violence. It's like it's entertainment. I know it's fake, and I don't know. I don't have it doesn't bother me. But Mark like virtually upsets. So I think it's almost intention. I still don't think there's a very large karmic footprint from my watching The Punisher. You know, I really don't. But for Mark, there is. It affects him for hours afterwards. And I almost think that your intention or how you interact with those things and what power you give to them too, as far as how negatively they feel and impact.
just a thought, and because I'm not quite that violent, but I used to watch a fair amount of violent kinds of things, and I started to think to myself at some point, it's got to affect me, whether I think it does or not. And I get it, and I like those movies, and I enjoy it. Not that, but more, not The Punisher so much, but yeah, Dirty Harry, or you know, where the where the good guy wipes out all the bad guys, and you know, life goes back to good. But I ultimately, looking at that, I said to myself, there's got to be some karma in that. I've got to be creating something in terms of the way that I think about things, the way that I see things or feel. And this was my personal choice. I'm not saying you should make it, but my personal choice at that point was to say, I'm really going to cut down on this, and I have, and it doesn't mean I don't watch it ever,
Yep.
but I don't watch it much.
Yeah, it's on a list of things I'm doing that I probably need to correct. It's not even near the top 5.
You're working your way down, right?
But I wanted to share a funny story that happened earlier, and it kind of deals with seeds, because sometimes, you know, we're saying this is a good seed, this is a bad seed, but isn't that relative?
Of course.
So this is my funny little story. Was we sat down to eat lunch, and I said, why aren't they putting the bread I bought out? Why are they using this bread? And I thought, so my bread wasn't fancy enough or artisanal enough for this group, so they're putting out their bread and not mine. And I started getting mad about it. I honestly, this happened, and then I realized what I was doing, and I just said I embrace this anger. I'm just, you know, we can eat whatever, it's fine. But I felt it. But as soon as I realized what was happening,
Yeah.
I realized that there was a joy in just in the recognition of the anger. Just by recognizing that it was there was some sort of joy within it. Like you're saying, the mind before it. I kind of remember what my mind was like before I started getting angry about the bread, you know. And I thought, you know, it was just interesting how it transformed into another feeling.
That's why you had 3 pieces of pie?
And I had the bread too. and when I got the bread, I said, "Wow, this is white bread." I was like, "Whoa!" Like, this is. And then the meal turned out great. I said, "Wow, this is." I know. I was like, "This is like a more processed kind of meal than we normally have." I said, "This is great." And so the whole thing just turned into just kind of joyous feeling, but it was only just from that act of recognizing the anger and not going with it. And I was so thankful I didn't go down that road of
Where's my bread?
where's my bread? Why is no one partaking in my bread?
We'll eat it for dinner.
Okay.
I had no idea. I even asked you because I thought maybe you brought that bread.
No, I didn't.
Remember I asked you?
Yeah, she did. In all seriousness,
That bread
it was probably the loaf that was on top is probably how it got chosen. That's my guess.
It's tough. Hey, it's lonely being 10.
The things we waste are, you know. Like when Ann
The
asked
most
her,
advanced practitioner.
Maybe 10.
Take on that role.
Negative karma coming at you for meal times. They're reflected.
I just duck.
Well, and I wasn't thinking of John. I was like, why isn't John putting it there? I thought the whole group. I said the whole group
We got together.
got together and said my bread wasn't artisanal.
We did actually. We all when you weren't here, we got together.
We were whispering.
Aaron's bread, jeez.
Did you look at the nutritional content?
So which one was yours anyway?
Mine was the brown berry from Mars.
That's good bread.
yeah, which is good bread.
Oh, it's great bread.
I even asked you, remember I asked you about that bread? And you said, no, I didn't bring that for what I had no idea whose bread it was.
That was my
Yeah.
bread.
Oh, okay. Because see, when I brought the salad, I said, I'll bring the bread and the butter too. So that's what, it's what I usually do. Okay, so if there's bread sitting on the counter again, we'll ask. So you don't have to go through all that drama.
I have a question about like, I don't know if it's group consciousness or how we've changed our thinking as a country, just the U.S. for example, how we've changed our thinking.
Our national consciousness.
Like just, from the Jim Crow era, for example, like it just blows my mind when I see pictures of, coloreds only, whites only, drinking fountains for different, but at the time and at certain locations, that was like what it was accepted. Whereas now, you know, it's entirely hard. We can't even imagine. Most people can't imagine. Or you know, the
It's a
other
very-
thing I was thinking of, you know, I grew up watching the Three Stooges and the Little Rascals, and now I don't even think the Little Rascals are even.
That's because they were very politically incorrect, I'm pretty sure.
But at the time,
I loved them, but they were,
Yeah.
you know, but
yeah, at the
I
time.
mean, now it's like, oh my God.
That's where our ancient twisted karma, that's the ancient twisted karma of your parents and our grandparents that thought that was okay, you know, that they're bigoted ideas and they were raised that way. That's how I believe, like, a lot of times the ancient twisted karma is, it's just our recent ancestors. It doesn't have to be ancient. You know, you inherit your karma
Yeah.
from where you're born into. Like you said, the
So
karma. Maybe
that's
it's our
part of
country's karma.
Big
that
Mind at the
screwed up.
time, and Big Mind has evolved.
Well, I don't think big.
Big mind always evolves. Big mind is nothing but change.
Yeah, change might be a better term.
Yeah.
It's less value loaded into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was what the one quote that I read at the beginning where he talks about, you know, there's nothing really substantial. What we're looking at and what we think are individuals are really just the change going on within big mind. That everything that's connected, but there's constant change and there's no self. And we have the illusion of self because of the constant change. We see the change. We think that there's all of this separateness. And then I go back to Shugen, who said, you know, we need to understand that we are all one, but if you're face to face with a tiger, you better make sure that you know that you are two, or you will be one at his lunch.
Yeah.
So it goes back to the not one, not two. I mean, it's why it's in, you know, we talk about all this, and it goes back to the title of the talk, which is, you know, it's, if we have thoughts about big mind, which is ungraspable, which we can't even appreciate from what Suzuki says, isn't it an oxymoron to sit here trying to think about it? And yet, understanding that all of these thoughts are part of big mind in a different way, maybe it's not. I
So
mean,
there's like big suffering and big compassion are all part of Big Mind.
Yeah.
everything.
Everything's part of
It's
Big
like it's the
Mind.
same as
Yeah.
suchness.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's hard for us to understand the inclusiveness of everything, because I think we tend to, you know, pigeonhole things. You know, we tend to do that, and of course that comes from like what you just talked about, John, is the way we want things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
something's happening, something's arising, you know, and we're
That's-
present with it and watching it, and you know, we start doing this thing of, oh, you know, where does this fit? You know, where does this fit in my, you know, mental storehouse, in my experience? Yeah. And that's really, I mean, to do that to ourselves and to do that to other people or whatever it is, a rock, you know, whatever it is, it's really deadly. It really is. So that thing of understanding, like what John's talking about with big mind, is it's all inclusive. It's just all there.
You got more?
I got. I do. I'm actually gonna skip the last quote, and because I think we're probably time to close here. But
Yeah, but the last quote's usually the best.
Yeah.
Well,
Read it.
the,
We won't cut lunch short, we'll cut Zazen short, don't we?
all right. Well, I had.
Now we're all gonna be wondering what the last quote was.
All right. I'm going to read the last.
No, like he makes
I'll
sense.
read the last quote, and then I'm going to read. I have a poem that some of you have heard once before, but I'll read that as the end of it. And
I think we have the most joyful Sangha.
Big joy.
yeah, it's big joy. It's part of Big Mind. Last quote is, "You cannot find Buddha nature by vivisection. Reality cannot be caught by thinking or feeling mind. Moment after moment, to watch your breathing, to watch your posture is true nature. There is no secret beyond that point. Enlightenment experience is to figure out, to understand, to realize this mind which is always with us, which we cannot see. The Zen school is based on our actual nature, on our true mind as expressed and realized in practice. Zen does not depend on a particular teaching, nor does it substitute teaching for practice. We practice Zazen to express our true nature, not to attain enlightenment."
Yeah.
I wrote this poem a couple of years ago. I shared it with the members of the Sangha back then, but many of you weren't here then. But it speaks to this very thing. The name of the poem is Know Me. Know me. Know me. All of the knows of the Heart Sutra, of all the sutras, teachers, and teachings, shunyata, know me. But all me. All the good, happy, pleasurable, and wondrous things. All the sad, painful, and cruel things. Moon, sun, and stars, cloud-shrouded mountains, oceans to the horizon, the trees and all plants, all fish, birds, and animals, all insects and bugs, even worms and slugs. Bacteria and viruses too, all me. My grandparents and theirs, and all before them, my parents, my sister and brother, my wife, my kids, my grandsons too, and all yet to come, all me. All Buddhas and ancestors, past, present, and future, but also all the cruel, vicious ones I feel I'm so different from. The panhandler, reeking of booze, the old person dying alone, the homeless and the refugee, all me. The billions before, the billions to come, the whole earth, the sun, the galaxy, the universe, all me. Know me. Know me. Know you. Know you. All you, all us, all one, only one. The bell rings. Today's mind, not empty. In fact, it's been full. I chant the Heart Sutra, do my prostrations. I blow out the candle, put my cushion away. I'll have a cup of coffee and get on with my day.
That's very nice.
I did.
He did it.
Yeah.
I was thinking Dr. Seuss wrote it.
Thank you. I love Dr. Seuss.
Dr. Will.
Dr. Will, a different doctor. Dr. Seuss was one of my favorites and my kids' favorites, and my kids are now teaching my grandkids. So,
The little engine that could.
well, more,
Green eggs and ham, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish.
yeah. Yeah.
No, all places to go.
Yeah,
Lot of green.
that's the good one. I like that.
Yeah.
It was similar to the Thich Nhat Hanh poem, and the one part that jumps out at me right now is, I am the snake that eats the frog. I am the frog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Call Me by My True Name.
Yes.
You read
That's
that
a
last
wonderful.
By my
Year.
true
You read it
name.
at last year's December session.
Oh, that's right. I did read Call.
Yeah.
I forgot.
That's exact poem.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a wonderful poem. Any other comments, questions? Otherwise, shall we? May our intention equally penetrate every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to become it.